Everything just changed for the Boston Celtics as we have multiple massive reports from Shams revealing some huge details surrounding a Celtics incoming trade. But we also had a blockbuster trade go down in the NBA just moments ago that changes everything, not only for the teams involved in the trade, but for the Boston Celtics as well. And folks, this is fantastic news. You're going to want to stay tuned till the end. We have a bunch of reports to go over today, as well as a few other trade updates that have massive implications going forward. A ton to go over today, folks. But before we get into it all, if you're part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Celtics content. Your guys' support has been unbelievable. So make sure to hit that subscribe button. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a lot to go over today, and everything just changed for the Boston Celtics. Everything just changed in the NBA and the way that this trade market is going to look. And as the NBA concludes here soon, the finals that is, things are really going to start to ramp up. We've heard multiple reports that teams are going all in. It's going to be one of the craziest off seasons of all time that we've ever seen, all these different things. And this is the calm before the storm because the Celtics are going to be right in the thick of it. But in case you missed it here, and this is very intriguing, moments ago from Shams, the Grizzlies traded Desmond Bane to the Magic, and the Magic gave up Cole Anthony, 4 unprotected firsts, and 1 first-round pick swap. Now, you might be looking at this and saying, holy, that's a ton. It is a boatload of picks for Desmond Bane. And of course, seems to be, a pretty big overpay by the Magic, but I'm not going to be diving into the Magic's point of view here. I'm going to be diving into the fact that this completely alters the trade market for the Boston Celtics and their players. They have Kristaps Porziņģis they're willing to trade. They have, of course, they have a lot of guys. Technically, they were saying they were open to Jaylen Brown, and maybe we see why now with how much you're going to get. But you have Jrue Holiday most likely going to be traded, even Derrick White, right? And Derrick White's a pretty good comparison to Desmond Bane, not necessarily fully the player, but in trade value and things like that. Derrick White might even be worth more depending on how you view it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is absurd. And you can see people around the league. Orlando got super nice. We're talking about the Grizzlies got 3 more first-round picks than Desmond Bane got for, Luka Doncic. If Desmond Bane's going for 5 firsts and Giannis is going for 10 firsts, all these different things, and no one's talking about the Boston Celtics impact here. They have some of the most valuable trade assets, on the market, at least in Jrue Holiday and among those, readily available. Now, we didn't really know that Desmond Bane was fully available, but regardless of that, this is fantastic news. Now, it makes sense for the Magic to make this deal. I don't know if I would have given up that many picks. If you're giving up that many picks, you probably want to, get another superstar to pair with Paolo Banchero and, the crowd over there. But people now have started to kind of put on notice here. You can see this here from Kyle. Celtics getting 8 firsts for Derrick White. And obviously, we're going to talk about Jrue Holiday and things like that in a minute. Ladies and gentlemen, this completely alters the Jrue Holiday trade sweepstakes here. And we know, and we have a new report from Shams we'll dive into in a minute. The Celtics are going to be moving off a lot of these guys and need to get under the luxury tax. If this is the amount that they're going to get back for some of these players. Now, I'm not saying Jrue Holiday is going to get 5 firsts because he's younger. Desmond Bane is a lot younger than Jrue Holiday, all these different things. But if you can get multiple first-round picks for Jrue Holiday, given his contract, all these different things, like there is a real world here where young contending teams that want to take a step forward are willing to pay and maybe even get in a bidding war for the Boston Celtics, guard Jrue Holiday. And I think that's the point now where this is fantastic news for the Celtics. And, good news for the sellers out there. Maybe the Bucks as well if they want to give up Giannis, but there's not many other teams that are fully open to trading a lot of their core pieces. Obviously, the Celtics have too because of the luxury tax and new ownership, but this is just great news. Now, if they want to give up Derrick White, they could probably easily get a similar package to Desmond Bane. You think about all these different things, and it becomes extremely intriguing, I will say. And there's been some other ones. What can the Celtics get for, Jrue Holiday? If you're giving up 5 first-round picks for Mikal Bridges, you're giving up 5 first-round picks, unprotected, 4 of them, for Desmond Bane. In theory, albeit he's older, Jrue Holiday should net you an absolute haul. And if you can get a package like that, this team then, if you're able to get multiple first-round picks for Jrue Holiday, you can turn that around, and then the year following this upcoming year, when Jayson Tatum's back to 100% healthy, you can flip it into another star and then run it back again, and maybe even continue to build around Derrick White, of course, depending on what happens with Derrick White, and if they decide to ultimately keep him, or if they decide to, let him go, I guess, depending on what happens there. And it's just an absurd situation, and one that, greatly benefits the the Boston Celtics. You can see this here from Celtics Unite. Mikal Bridges traded for 5 first-round picks. Desmond Bane traded for 4 first-round picks. I get that he's older, but how much do you think the Celtics are receiving for Jrue Holiday? And I think at this point, it's all but clear that he's gone. Let me know down below in the comment section how much you think Jrue Holiday is going to get. I'm going to guess maybe 3 first-round picks, something like that. Now, of course, within this trade, there is a caveat, like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, they're taking on his contract, which is a bit of a, not a monstrosity, but a bit of a monstrosity given, what he does. Cole Anthony, an intriguing prospect. Like, it is an expensive, if you're the Grizzlies, you came out very well in this deal, right? You came out very well in this deal. You got a Mikal Bridges type package. And of course, there's going to be always the comparisons about Luka Doncic and how Luka Doncic got less, all these different things. They got Anthony Davis back in that deal. But it's, I don't know. It's interesting. And from the Orlando perspective of it here, like how much, if there's teams willing to pay for that, like, could they have gotten Jrue Holiday for much cheaper? And then maybe, because Jrue Holiday would have done not the same things that Desmond Bane has done. Like Jrue Holiday is an elite defender. He doesn't average nearly as many points, not as good of a 3-point shooter, but like, surely there's teams out there, if the Orlando Magic are willing to give up 5 firsts, 4 firsts, whatever it is for Desmond Bane, 4 unprotected and 1 swap, there's going to be tons of teams out there that are clamoring for Jrue Holiday. And if the Celtics are able to say, hey, listen, Desmond Bane gave them 4 first round picks and 1 swap, essentially 5 first round picks. Why can't we get something, relatively similar? And that's going to be the big question. And don't even get me started on Derrick White. Obviously, younger, great contract. He's in a very good spot as well. So let me know down below what your thoughts are on that, because it is a crazy time now. And this is the beginning of what's going to be one of the biggest NBA off seasons we have ever seen, one of the craziest NBA off seasons we have ever seen. The Celtics are in the thick of it, and they have the roster to. It's a great time for. You never want to see injuries. You never want to see anything like that. If you're going to blow it up or retool at least, because Jayson Tatum's going to be out for a while with torn Achilles. It's the time to do it. I mean, Jrue Holiday, even Kristaps now at this point. I think it's going to be such a buyer's market because of how many teams want to compete. Ever since the plan has happened, teams are wanting to make pushes. Even maybe Kristaps might be able to get you something decent. But pairing that with, some new reports here from Shams, you can see here, everything is on the table for the Boston Celtics this summer. We know that Shams Charania on the Pat McAfee show said the other big ticket item I think this offseason is the Celtics and what they are going to do. And again, as we know here, Jrue Holiday, Kristaps Porziņģis, Sam Hauser are all on the table. And I mean, everything but Tatum. Again, we've seen reports now that Jaylen Brown might even potentially be on the table for a massive haul. I mean, like, could the Magic have, in theory, gotten Jaylen Brown for this package? Maybe. Like, this is a crazy package. And would you rather Jaylen Brown or Desmond Bane? Of course, for the Magic, I kind of understand it. They'd probably rather he's more of a complimentary player in Desmond Bane, but it's like, it's similar to Mikal Bridges' deal. And the Celtics have all these guys, even like Sam Hauser. I mean, it's so many guys that they can trade. Derrick White. If the deals are this good, then the Celtics are set up perfectly. And again, I think the most likely outcome here is Jrue gets traded, Kristaps gets traded, and maybe even Sam Hauser. I think they're going to keep Jaylen Brown and Derrick White so they have a somewhat competitive team going forward. And maybe you can use those picks that you got back in these trades to either make moves further at this deadline if they're kind of close, or most likely save them for another blockbuster deal in the future. But again, according to Shams, everyone but Tatum is on the table. And now you can start to see why. Of course, the NBA, like the front office, Brad Stevens, they probably know that these types of deals are going to be happening. But now after seeing this, it not only changes everything for the Magic, it doesn't only change anything for the Grizzlies, the two teams involved, it changes everything for the landscape of this trade market. And I can see why the GMs have said, and reporters, including Shams and Windhorst, saying that this is going to be one of the craziest off seasons of all time. Ladies and gentlemen, you guys are absolute beasts. You're going to want to make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on noties, because Windhorst are going to drop a bomb. So everyone's dropping bombs. We'll keep you up to date. Cheers.